Can you describe how it is?
It's an insane test of human resilience, war of artillery, with thunder of artillery shells just going all the time.
How they've been so good at adaptation and coming up with new ways to wage war.
Key thing about this is that you don't have a choice.
What kind of future would you like to see for Ukraine?
So many men and women are still there, still do the impossible. I have hope.
Welcome to Shoot Talk. Could you briefly introduce yourself? So who you are, what do you do, what is your favorite soup, and so on?
My name is Illia Ponomarenko. I came from Ukraine. Many might know me from Twitter. And my favorite soup is, I guess, Bigger Johnson, I guess.
Okay, but if you have any requests, we can discuss it. So you've been in Finland for some time, not long, but do you have already something that you enjoy about Finland?
What I enjoy is the fact that the sun never sets, apparently, this time of the year, which is especially cool on Friday nights, because the Friday nights suddenly never has, more or less so.
Yeah, and you came in a good time. Since this week is basically the summer of Finland, so after that is over.
So it's snow again.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was a month ago we still had snow. But anyway, let's move on about you. You've been referred by Der Spiegel as likely the best-known Ukrainian after President Zelensky. How does this feel overwhelming, or how do you feel about
it? It does. Well, that was the opinion of Spiegel from a year and a half ago, I guess. They had an interview with me, in general, about my work, about what I do in Ukraine. Well, that was their opinion. That's likely the best-known Ukrainian after Zelensky. Well, I think that's. I'm not completely agree with this. Well, I definitely do my part, and I really try to reach as many hearts as possible for the sake of my country. But I'm not sure if I can stand in the same line with people like Zelensky, for instance. But I think I have done something for this country, for my country.
You have 1.2 million followers, or give or take a few on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. How did it feel like suddenly? I mean, your account was relatively big already, but you during the first months of the full-scale invasion, it just grew dramatically.
It reached 1 million, I think, by the middle of March 2022, which is like second week of the full-scale invasion. I was never super popular on social media because I'm not that kind of person, to be honest. And even though I've been working as a journalist for like almost a decade, but I'm not seriously that kind of person. And I think by the beginning of this war crisis that continued for months already, I had like 10,000 followers or so. I was insanely proud of this. It was like a huge victory, especially in Ukraine, where Twitter is not. Twitter was never like super important instrument for Ukrainian journalists. It's more like a Western meaning. This is one main reason why we, as English language journalists, we gradually switched to Twitter and started to gaining presence in there. Because if you're not on Twitter in the Western media presence, you don't exist. Basically, no one sees you. But I think the biggest boost happened when the Key Post, which used to be a major English language media outlet in Ukraine, we worked for. The entire team was dismissed, was fired, following the conflict with the publisher. And within days, we, on the same team of friends, we decided to stay together and established a brand new media outlet, became independent. And this was such an insane scandal in Ukraine because the reputation of Key Post was really good. There was so many people paying attention to this. So we started hitting the social media because we didn't have a website, we didn't have an office, we had nothing, essentially nothing. And thus we started gaining presence on Twitter and social media. And then this war, this crisis, this unique historical events and it booms just like that.
You recently published a book. The title is "I Will Show You How It Was: The Story of Wartime Kiev." Maybe we can show it here. You don't have a copy with you right now, but could you briefly explain, just do a little promotion of what it is about?
At some point during the Battle of Bakhmut, which is late 2022, I decided that we need, as a Kiev independent, we need to make like a huge step forward in terms of us being a media outlet, and I decided I really want to write a book about this war. That was by the end of the first year of the invasion, and I've been thinking about writing a story of what happened to us. And at the Battle of Kiev, the last weeks before the war, in the uneven and unscripted victory of Ukraine by Kiev was such a banger to me personally. It was such a mind-blowing event that little to no one expected, unexpected. It was such an outburst of the best thing, what is about human nature, what was happening in our country. So I decided that I just need to tell this. Initially I wanted this to be like a standard, it was a history book, maps, arrows, but I soon realized that there are lots of people who would do this much better than I would do. And moreover, I have something to tell that is behind all those things, as headlines, emotions, the experience of living through this as a Ukrainian. Basically, the story of very usual people in the middle of real apocalypse that was supposed to happen but didn't happen because these people, just like you and me, just like many other people, they did so many incredible things and essentially prevented the end of the world, our world that would later. So I decided to go really easy and not to write formal journalistic story of what it was, but to have like sort of personal conversation about what it is, what it was. It starts with Christmas time in Kiev, pre-war time. I also wanted to show the life in Ukraine, what Ukraine is, how cool it was to live in Ukraine, how difficult sometimes it was to go to Ukraine. And also I wanted to show Kiev what was at stake, why Kiev was so important, what it is like to live in Kiev, and why is it that Russia wants Kiev so much, what's the significance, what's the civilizational importance of it, why the Putin wants it. So it follows the chain of events from the beginning of this war crisis, this brewing stories of Russian forces constraining on the border with Ukraine. And it's told as from professional perspective of a journalist, of a guy who happens to be a journalist. And gradually, as the day of all days comes closer, it becomes more and more about personal things, about human lives, human destiny, about questions like, what do you do in these circumstances when you know that the largest war since World War II is going to happen and they will attack? What do you do? What is your choice? In that circumstances, do you flee or do you stay and fight? What about your love maps? What about your duty, for instance, as a journalist or as an active citizen? And I demonstrate what I really saw. A lot of sad stories, a lot of fighting and things that we saw on battlefields as we worked as journalists. A lot of funny stories actually. There's lots of really things of hope that were happening in the semi-besieged Kiev, about people who were working to help in military war, and people helping each other or surviving this, helping their friends. And this is the story of hope in a city that deserves so much freedom, and moreover, the story of people who demonstrate the very best what is about human nature and win, and suddenly win, and prevail over evil. That's my story.
Okay, I think you partly already mentioned this, but I mean there was allegedly a plan to take Kiev in 3 days. We had this massive convoy coming.
Yes.
We had the Battle of Hostomel Airport. Sorry if I mispronounced the word, but How did Ukraine actually turn this really dark situation into a, well, we can call it victory in
It's victory. When you try and fail to capture the capital city of a nation under attack, I think that qualifies.
let's call it a big victory.
And from the Russian side, a lot of things went wrong. Partly because their plan was unrealistic, partly because they were deeply, profoundly mistaken when it comes to the perception of what Ukraine is. They were terribly mistaken in supposing that Ukraine is not going to fight back, is that in believing their own systemic propaganda about Ukrainians only wishing to be liberated by Russia. They had a situation in which they put a lot on the speed, on the swift attack, on like a shock and aid operation, on first strike to possibly behead, paralyze the entire Ukrainian nation, including the military, including the defense forces, the central government, to paralyze it and take it really quickly by surprise. So that's why we had, in the early hours of February 24th, we had this massive missile attacks on facilities, on defense forces, of everything. And this was followed by this Russian elite airborne attack on Hostomel airfield, which was a strategic airfield just outside Kiev. And the plan was to catch this airfield, seize it, and bring even more and more forces on aircraft. Essentially, the first step, it failed. By the end of the first day of the invasion, it suddenly happened that Ukrainian forces managed to destroy the attacking force at Hostomel airfield with Russian elite whatever forces. It just suddenly happened that the first jump was not successful. And they were so self-assured, so sure that this swift jump will bring them swift victory, that things started to crumble bit by bit. And there was no serious and realistic plan B. What happens if the first step fails? What happened next was that Russians essentially had to break in the main forces from Belarus, from Chernobyl zone to Kiev, from east and from the west, and there was no many roads, there's no many highways to move from Belarus to outskirts of Kiev, and it's dense woodland. It's a great opportunity to ambush these endlessly long convoys that were also supposed to move really fast, so they were barely protected, barely armed. So they were supposed to just enter Kiev just like that, facing little to no resistance. But suddenly it appeared that Ukrainian forces, even though they were terribly outgunned, outnumbered, Western military experts say that the disproportion between what Russians had and what we had in the Battle of Kiev was close to 10-1. But at the same time, we had some 2nd Brigade, we had an artillery brigade and many other forces, and they managed to stall Russian forces in the outskirts of Kiev, Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel, and from the other side, in the outskirts of Brovary, east of Kiev. And they finally stalled in these outskirts, and it goes on and on with no success. The Russians really tried hard to cross the Irpin River, which is straight west of Kiev, and all bridges were blown up. They tried and managed to cross the river just one place. This is the ill-fated town of Mashun, but nonetheless, the Ukrainian military managed to push them out. And it went on and on and on, and eventually Russian forces were so exhausted and so much time was lost that essentially the entire plan was derailed. And by the end of March, we had a situation in which we started thinking about the Ukrainian counterstrike, because Russians were out of strength to come on, but they never managed to enter Kiev. So with that situation, they made the decision to leave before it was too late. And thus, the top priority goal was not achieved right from the start.
But one thing that I remember from those early months is Bayraktar.
Oh yeah.
It was very effective weapon, I think, at the beginning, but we've seen some massive adaptation and technological leaps, which usually happen during wartime. And I feel it's like you come up with something new, and then the enemy comes up with a counter, and so on. So, how do you feel like how has Ukraine been? How they've been so good at adaptation and coming up with this new ways to wage wars?
Regarding Bayraktar, Bayraktar was one of the greatest means of the early onset of the year. Up to this day, I swear to you, up to this day, we have countless cafes, barber shops, coffee shops titled Bayraktar. Don't get me started about the naming of this. And when it comes to the Bayraktar, in the situation of the Russian chaos in logistics and in attacks, in the situation of the rail pass, Bayraktar was super helpful. But when the situation switched to Russians adapting this and having multi-layered air defense, Bayraktar ended up being not as useful as it could be in a different situation. It's natural that Russians are not stupid. Plus should not underestimate. They adapt to, but Ukrainians adapt to as well. When there's a saying that if you don't have a choice, you will adapt. The life will force you into this, seriously. So, in many ways, Ukrainians had to compensate their numerical disadvantage with something that comes as a smart warfare, that allows you to spend less resources and find more effective solutions. Like the very introduction of FPV drones means a lot, and essentially Ukrainians, because of the chronic lack of resources and this disproportion of power between us Russians, they had to open the entire new chapter of modern warfare, which is the introduction of cheap, massively produced drones, reconnaissance or strike drones. But it appears it's about massively produced drones made of junk, sometimes constructed in someone's backyard or garage. Thus, you see Ukrainians hitting Russian gas stations or oil refineries with drones that cost little to nothing, actually. Probably if we're talking about in the scales of this war. So it's about not having money, but using your brain, of course, because you have no choice. The key thing about this is that you don't have a choice.
You visited the zero line or the front line as a journalist many times, right?
Yeah.
Can you describe to somebody who cannot, for me it's very hard to even imagine how it is. So,
well, it's super diverse in terms of what you see. In most cases, and especially when it comes to now, it's a woodland. It's something that we call pasadka. It's the strips of forest of woods that go next to agricultural fields to protect them from wind. That's a very usual thing in agricultural areas, but mostly it's a short strips of woodland with trenches dug up. This goes with trees being broken after so many months of hostilities. It's soldiers digging really deep onto these trenches. Into these dugouts, they turn into creatures of the underground in many ways. Soldiers walking through this forest and occasionally, sometimes seeing the enemy in the eye with the eyes, and mostly it's about distant war, war of artillery, with thunder of artillery shells just going all the time, all around in this forest, and trucks, Ukrainian trucks coming in and out in wide bodies, evacuating the dead, the wounded, bringing more supplies like food. Soldiers drinking a lot of energy drinks, stay awake. Them holding the line, sometimes not seeing the enemy for many days. So that's what it is. It's like it seriously could be compared to World War One, but to somewhat smaller scale, but still as frightening and dangerous and as it was back then. It's a World War One in a nutshell, but still a terrible place to paint. Also, I didn't see that, but you can see it in many videos and pictures that battlefields are littered with trash, garbage from human activity and everything, and this trash sometimes mixed with human bodies that are sometimes frozen into the ground, Russian bodies, Ukrainian bodies, especially when it comes to areas that are closer to the neutral territory between lines. It's hell on earth.
It sounds like it's a hell of an earth, but how do these people, the soldiers, how do they deal with this huge amount of stress? And
well, some go insane, of course. Some, most of them are resilient enough to adapt to this. Some defect. There are cases of defection, of course, just like in any war. Some, this is what I see in many of the people that I know who are from real battled combat units. Some slowly and steadily lose their perception of their being alive. So sometimes they tell me that, but I talk to them. So sometimes it feels like there's nothing but this trench, this woodlands, and the section that he or she wants, and they needs to protect, needs to defend. And there is nothing else in this world beyond this. And they consider themselves dead, alive. They only consider themselves dead. It's the same psychological pressure of this, especially when it comes to the fact that there is no end in sight. It's an insane test of human resilience, especially given the fact that sometimes it's really easy to give up and leave, but nonetheless, so many men and women are still there, still do the impossible in this mixture of garbage and trash and human bodies and dirt and this sound. Some have become professionals and they have learned how to survive this. Many think about the survival, but still they serve their duty. Many, of course, understand they're motivated. They, of course, understand that it's hard, but it's something that saves the world for so many behind lines. All sorts of things that happens to a soldier that has sacrificed a lot. Or a lot of what shouldn't have never happened.
do you feel like this perspective of the war, is it brought up often enough, or is it something that we tend to forget, or not even some of us maybe even don't want to hear about it?
Well, I'm not sure if people do not want to hear about it, but it's again, it's a usual nature of war, usual nature of how society works. We, as human beings, we often tend to purely underestimate the sacrifice of soldiers, not being even able to understand this. There is no word that can describe the entirety of this. It's one of the greatest tragedies of wars that civilians here in the rear, they are not even able to fully appreciate what these people have done for them, especially in this war, in such a war. So that's why for instance, when it comes to my plan of what I can do about this, one of many, I try to give voices to soldiers who appear to be kind of good at writing. I see them on social media or Facebook, for instance. I have quite a few friends who are really good at writing, can tell stories, so they pour their feelings on social media, on Twitter, and I seriously encourage them to maybe take some time after war and write a book, write books, write stories, but from the soldier's perspective. I think we will have a lot of our own remarks, poet writers telling the truth of the most terrible year of our time. So I think best way is to give a soldier a voice.
I fully agree with that statement. Many of us have seen the Kremlin's online narratives targeted at Western countries, but I think something that we don't really understand, or I don't understand, is the disinformation and propaganda targeted at Ukrainians in Ukraine. Can you say something about this? How it works?
It works the following way. Of course, Ukraine is riddled with problems because of its own mistakes, because of the objective nature of this great war that we have. But many mistakes are made from the point of view of mass mobilization. So in many cases, it's one of the worst problems in wartime Ukraine is that mobilization is massive, it's brutal, it's excessively brutal against the people of 12 villages and towns called Western Ukrainian. I'm sure you heard the stories of military events just snatching people and bringing them to the front line. The loads of training and preparation. Sometimes people who do not match the health requirements, and it's easy for Russian propaganda, for Russian influencers to introduce these narratives, underline these things, promote this public dissatisfaction about this negative things that's happening. Same thing goes to things like the power outages, and they promote on social media countless of bots speaking Ukrainian, writing Ukrainian messages, and they promote this narrative and message that this could have happened really easily if you give up, or they write on behalf of usual Ukrainians saying that this is Zelensky's fault. This is what his reign has took us to with this war in Russia, and this is what Americans did to us. This is all their fault. We shouldn't have listened to them. We shouldn't have had this Maidan revolution, so on and so forth. So they exploit internal problems of Ukraine, the war toils in many ways, and also a lot of stupid things that's being done by Ukrainian authorities to promote it in this general message: give up and your problems will end.
But is it effective?
Well, it plays a role. It definitely plays a role. I'm not sure if that has an ultimate effect on the mobilization. For instance, things like mobilization or public morale, because naturally, in the process of this bloody war, so much that has been lost. Naturally, public morale gets lower. A lot of people get satisfied about this, but still, the system still generally works. The army holds alive, the economy somewhat works. There's no social collapse inside the country, and most of the people are still not ready to kind of give up and force Ukrainian leadership into giving up and handle this all, and under any circumstances, no matter the cost. No matter the outcome. But of course, it has its effects. But good news is that it's not taking over Ukraine yet.
In 2014, let's go back 10 years back. You studied international relations in Mariupol, right? When Russia attempted to take the city. How do you remember those days?
Well, I was a student. I was barely 20 years old. No, 22 years old. And those were weird months, several months of Mariupol being basically in the state of anarchy. Because when pro-Russian militants, they occupied the center of the city council of the area. But at the same time, Ukrainian authorities or public services or special services or the military, they left the city completely. So the city was on its own. And I remember some of my friends who used to be workers at local metalworks plants, they formed some sort of, vigilante units that would patrol their own districts and cities for the sake of survival from marauders or street criminals. So there was no police, no fire service, huge problems with food supplies into the city. I remember that many people had to spend a lot of time looking for products or food in supermarkets. And I used to rent an apartment in the industrial part of Mariupol. And we lived in this chaos and this anarchy for several months in springtime and summertime. And I decided to go and see what's happening. All this DNR flags, so-called DNR flags, this barricades in downtown. And at some point in summertime, I remember waking up to the sound of a huge explosion somewhere in the city. I open my eyes and I see the sky gray. It's still probably an hour before sunrise, and I hear the explosion, and I hear a lot of gunshots somewhere far away from here. And my first thought is that Ukrainian forces had come. That morning, Azov battalion and many other units, they entered the city and they attacked the Russian President's headquarters on Greek Street. And essentially that was the end of this anarchy in Mariupol. Mariupol got back to a peaceful life. It's just, the capital just within this beautiful city, symbol of hope in many ways, turned into one giant cemetery among the rubble of destroyed tanks. It's one of the greatest tragedies of modern history.
Okay, let's end on a positive note.
Yes.
What kind of future would you like to see for Ukraine?
I have hope. I'm cautiously optimistic about this country, my country, because so many things have done, incredible things have done for this country. We have traveled so far on this way since February 24th. We have seen and done so many incredible things that absolutely no one can expect. And I think this country really deserves, and it has already won a future that is probably not 100% of what we dream of, with Russians absolutely leaving every single inch of our territory and leaving us alone. But at the same time, we have won a future in which we will survive as an independent nation. We will survive as a nation that has most of its territory under its control, with the hope of getting the rest back. We have survived as a nation that has changed a lot and managed to overcome a lot of its setbacks and a lot of its negative sides that which helped us essentially survive the war with Russia. And I think the best outcome for us would be to survive and to go on making our country a better place, a stronger place, getting us the strongest military force that we can possibly get in order to be way too strong to be invaded again, to prevent another attack, another war. Ukraine has changed a lot since 2014, but it has changed in an even greater manner since 2022. We have become stronger in terms of enforcing the people's will of making this country a better place. So I think Ukraine will live on, and I have an image of what's hope in my head of the Christmas time, the first Christmas time after the end of the war. And I think we will have a happy Christmas time, Western style, in downtown Kiev, just the way it used to happen before the war. But now, since Ukraine has changed, it will be even more well-deserved, even more joyous, and with even more hope, and give it more appreciation of what have been done for the sake of us enjoy the life and democratic and free country. So we'll survive. It will be fine.
That's a good way to conclude this interview. Thank you, Illia.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.